Good evening, YouTubers. This is Joe Bravo and Mo Bravo's Knife Reviews. And today I'd like to talk to you about the Cortex from Brown Knives. And I am absolutely enamored with this knife. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't typically buy two of the same knife at the same time unless I like them. I did that with the Koenig Arius. I bought the DLT exclusive texture, and I bought the Koenig exclusive polish model. And I'm going to be honest, I loved both of those knives, and I had no problem purchasing both and getting them in my hand, getting a feel of them. And I was very excited to do so. The review went well, and I said, let me try and do that again with the knife that I am absolutely enamored with. I had a Brown Knives LHC V2 in the green micarta, and I'm going to be honest, the Cortex really spoke to me more than the LHC V2 did. It was just a flipper, and if you like flippers, by all means, that is the knife for you right now. But recently, I was able to get my hands on an Alamic whippersnapper, and my buddies Kyle, my buddies Jason, they taught me how to reverse spider flick like a boss, and I have been thoroughly enjoying this process, so much so that it has become one of my favorite opening methods and fidgeting deployments. We laugh about this all the time on the Vero group chat that we're all on. If a knife only has one opening operation or one opening method, it almost gets boring. And that's what brings me to the Brown Knives Cortex. This knife is fantastic to fidget with. Fantastic. And I know everybody saw my reviews and my comparison video on the Brown Cortex carbon fiber green twill that I had purchased a couple weeks ago. And I can't tell you how much I enjoy this knife, except for the fact I bought a second. Well, my wife's like, why would you buy two of the same knives? And I said, well, I really wanted to see if the action was any different and if the micarta was as nice as it was on the LHC V2 that I had. And I'm going to be honest, this is a fabulous knife. I mean, absolutely. I was able to get a stellar deal on it, thanks to my buddy Nathan and Chris. And I was even more pleasantly surprised when I got the knife and I realized that Chris had done a little anno work on the knife. And it just makes this thing pop. I mean, fantastic. And nobody except for, Chad, James, who else? Joey, all the guys in the Brown Knives Facebook group, John, I mean, I can keep going. If you don't know about the Brown Knives yet, you better, because they are absolutely world beaters. They got a 3.4-inch Warncliffe blade that is fantastic. It really is. It is fantastic. It is so useful to cut boxes, to cut tape. It sits really well in the pocket. Very comfortable. It's lightweight. It's got CPM 154 steel. And, I mean, Craig, you're killing it with these things. I mean, you really are. The integrated, the bolster lock mechanism combined with the ceramic bearings. I mean, it is a joy. You ruined my whippersnapper, Craig. You really did. I can't play with this thing anymore. I mean, I want to love it. I mean, and I do. Don't get me wrong, I do. But why won't it drop shut? I mean, that's not a knock on Alamic. This freaking knife is fantastic. Look how thick that blade stock is. I mean, you could do a lot with this knife. It's just about bomb-proof. And that's not saying the Cortex isn't, but why? Why would you carry a whippersnapper if you could carry a Cortex? And it's almost got me vacillating on getting rid of the whippersnapper because it's so good. And, you know, you're going to say, okay, Joe, it's Brown Knives. It's not a Koenig. It's not a Shiro. Excuse me, a Holt. I got my Shiro in the bag. I mean, it's not an Evo. I mean, it's not even a Vero. And I would say you guys are all dead wrong. If you are not putting a Brown Knives into your everyday carry rotation, the joke is on you. I mean, I love my Vero. I love my Impulse. Everybody knows that. I call it my Goldilocks because it fits just right. And, you know, even this has multiple deployment methods. You know, I like the thumb flick. I like the reverse spider flick. And I like the traditional pointer finger flip. Fantastic to play with. Fantastic to fidget with. The Koenig. Great under flick. Great drop shut. I mean, why wouldn't you want to play with this fucking knife? Why? And plenty of belly on that knife. Plenty of usefulness. Look at that bright wash. And that's what's special about this polished version. That bright wash is just fantastic. It really is. Yeah, and I got into knives. I had an XM18. It's the first review that I did. Go back into the archives. You'll see it. And I was so enthralled with that XM18 skinny slicer that my buddy Jason got me. And man, was that nice. And that had thumb studs, and it had a flipper tab. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. There was nothing wrong with that knife. And then I saw the Holt Specter. And I said, wow, I want to own a Holt Specter. And, you know, through different opportunities, I was able to get one at a good price, and it has made its way into my collection. I was a little uncertain about the purple, but it is certainly growing on me. It is certainly unique. The bent starburst is fantastic. M390 steel. The drop shut is out of control. Just out of control. I'm gonna be honest with you. With what the Holts are getting on the secondary market, there's no reason why you could carry, or why you would be upset about carrying a brown Cortex over a Specter. I mean, okay, doesn't have the name, but you talk about the fit and the finish, you talk about the action. I can't say enough how much I enjoy these knives. And look at bolster lock. You know what I could do on this knife? I could grip it and rip it, because where I put my hands is nowhere near that bolster lock. So I am free to grip this thing as strongly as I'd like to without having any deployment issues. You go to spider flick it. I mean, sometimes on the whippersnapper, I struggle to hold that thing in my hand with just the flick. This thing, it's like it's made for your palm. It just sits right up against there. The flick is there. I mean, it is perfect. And I'm so happy that both models, I mean, you're talking about almost 100 knives later, and the Cortex is just as fun, just as snappy, just as drop shutty 100 knives later. And that's a real testament to Craig. I mean, Craig, I don't know you. I feel bad even calling you by your first name. But I'm enamored with your knives. I think you're doing a splendid job. I am excited to hear about what you have planned for the Cortex, because I will definitely be one of those suckers jumping in line to get the next generation. Please don't misunderstand my love for the Cortex to be a knock on the LHC XV2, because it is a fantastic knife. I loved it. I thought it was so beautiful that I had to buy one with the micarta handles just to be exactly like that LHC XV2. And I'm going to tell everybody once again, if you haven't listened to what I'm trying to tell you, go find one of these, put it in your arsenal, and make sure you come back and thank me. Because I'm going to be honest, I got to thank Chad, and I got to thank James, I got to thank Jason, I got to thank everybody for getting me to the point where this journey has gotten me to a point where I could say that this is a knife that I think I will always have, you know. Can I say that about my other knives? I'm not sure. You know, my PM2 will always be my PM2. I don't think I'll ever get rid of my Caribbean, you know, but when you look at the journey that these upper tier of knives go and what you could spend on a knife that really speaks to you, that's why I'm trying to say that the Brown Knives Cortex could really be something that you could own without breaking the bank, and you could certainly feel proud of. You could take it out at a dinner party, you could take it out at the gun range, you could take it out at a ball game, and it always, always, always plays to the crowd. You know, you could say that about the Evo. I mean, you bust this thing out and somebody's going to be like, whoa, where are you going with that thing? You know, you bust the Specter out and you're going to get a lot of oohs, a lot of ahs, and maybe that's what you want. But you're certainly going to get a lot of attention with this knife. But, you know, I took a picture a week or two ago of my LHCX V2 and my Cortex on my grandfather's old dump box. And I'm telling you, when I say it, I really feel like this knife is like a timeless classic. You could call it a Rolex, you know, a Datejust, a watch, Omega, you know, Speedmaster, a watch, a knife, a piece of collector that you can have for 30 years and it would still be a timeless classic. I mean, you could be honest. Can you say that in 30 years the Holt Specter is going to be a timeless classic? I mean, it's freaking amazing. It is every bit of an amazing knife. But, you know, I kind of put that into the definition of the Rolex Explorer GMT. It's a beautiful knife. It's a really popular knife right now. But in 30 years, just like they were wearing Omegas that were 32, 34 millimeter, just like they had Datejusts that were 34, 36 millimeter, you know, where I really think this speaks to this design is that you could make this knife 60 years ago and it would have been hot. And you can make it 60 years later and it'll be hot. And I think that's really the true definition of a classic. And I really think that's what Craig Brown and Brown Knives did with this model. So, yeah, what do we call this? Is it a review? Is it a testimonial? Is it an opinion? Editorial? I don't know what you want to call it. All I know is that my friends laugh all the time when I say about how much I love this knife and how much it speaks to me. And I'm really, really glad to have the opportunity to have one in my collection, and now two. If I wanted to say about other knives that I'm looking forward to putting in my collection that I think have the ability to become a partner in a classic you know, knife or a classic object that could be a generational thing, I really think that the Vero isotope is going to have that integral bolster lock with carbon fiber inlay is really going to be a knife that has the opportunity to be you know, a classic, a real classic. Some of the other knives, I had picked up a 520 or 520 with the carbon fiber inlay, And I'm really excited to get that in hand and see how that compares. You know, you used to go back to the PM2 and compare everything back to the PM2 because it was such a classic. And I'm not saying it's not. And every time I pick up a knife, I compare it to the PM2 because that is my standard. That's where I go to. That's where I'm at in this world in the knife journey. But I think now these next knives that I come into my collection, such as the Shiro Kami, I was so lucky enough to fall into yesterday. You know, is that going to be the kind of knife that's going to be a generational knife? You know, I'm not sure. I won't know until I get it in my hand, but it has really been an exciting adventure. And for everybody who's subscribed, everybody who still watches these videos, I am really happy, really thankful to have the opportunity to share my feelings with you and to show you some really cool knives. Well, it's late, and I know I've gone over the 5 minutes that I try and maintain, even though I never do. Thank you for joining me. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. If you don't comment, I won't know what you're talking about. I won't know how to proceed. And somebody left a comment last week, and I was really, struck by it. You know, maybe do a review of knives that you carry in pocket. And that's certainly a good idea. And I think the Cortex I have most certainly carried in pocket. The Holt I carried last week, and maybe I could carry the Arius around for a week and see and do a comparison video of which one of those knives I think are a better pocket carry. You know, and my Shirogorov, my F3NS is another knife that I love in my pocket. I don't have it out here today, but maybe by next week I can get a nice review about what I feel like having the knives in my pocket and which one I'd recommend for the EDC. But if I was a betting man, I certainly would have money on my brown Knives Cortex. So, thank you again, and have a lovely evening.